Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of your last best hope for conversation, your Babylon 5 podcast. I am one of your hosts, Jesse Jackson. Joining me today is Karen.
Hello.
And Lou.
Hello, everyone, on this sleep-deprived jump-ahead morning.
Yes,
morning.
We are recording this on the day after daylight savings time changes. And so we all have a little less hour of sleep, but but we are braving through. And tonight we are talking a new episode of Babylon 5. We are talking Infection. This was I think third episode of the first season, fourth episode of the first season, written by J. Michael Straczynski, directed by Richard Compton. Richard Compton directs plenty. It has a significant guest star.
Ducky.
Yes.
Yep, Ducky.
And I think it's interesting is David McCallum had not started doing NCIS at this point, right? So this was like, oh, look, it's the man from U.N.C.L.E.
That's right. Ilya Kuryakin.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. That's my age showing. Maybe you too, Jesse, but that was my first thought. Oh, there's Ilya Kuryakin. Awesome. And then I realized, everybody else will probably think of him as Ducky, but
No, my husband is obsessed with NCIS.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I watch Parks and Rec over and over and over again. He watches NCIS and Stargate. Those are the two he watched. So that's where I knew him from.
All right. So while Lou, give me quick thoughts about this one.
It was a step down from last episode. The idea of organic machinery is cool, but obviously in the wake of things like the Borg from Star Trek and that, it doesn't have the same kind of oomph nowadays, I'm sure, that it had back then. It's always great to see David McCallum in anything, so I was quite happy to see and surprised actually to see that he was showing up on this episode. The suit, though, that that one character transforms into when he takes the scarab beetle thing and puts it on his chest was pretty off-putting. I realized this is 1994 makeup, special effects, blah, blah, blah. And I've seen probably cheesier things on the original Star Trek with their, paper mache boulders and that. But when you're coming into something for the first time, it's always hard to get by these elements. So that suit really didn't do it for me. But and the whole idea of Doomsday Machine type of episode has also been done before. But it was interesting. And at least we got a couple of character beats between Garibaldi and Sinclair that I thought were worthy of noting.
All right, Karen.
I agree 100%. Although since last week I was down on the episode, I find it almost cool. I didn't think it took a dip down for me. I agree 100% about the outfit. It was super off-putting. We didn't see the praying mantis dude in this episode.
Right. No, we
so
didn't.
Maybe this was the substitute for that. But yeah, I really liked Garibaldi in this episode. I thought he had some good points, and the fact that he actually addressed the fact that Sinclair puts himself in danger, I thought was really good.
Yeah, I agree. In fact, if you guys remember last time we recorded, I said, I don't remember anything about this episode. And so when I watched it again, I went, oh yeah, this one.
That's why.
Yeah, this is why. It's a very simple story. If you, as we often talk, I talk about going to Lurker's Guide because at the very end of each page, you have, J. Michael Straczynski talking about it. And he says he thought this was one of the worst episodes of the first season. He said of the 22 episodes, 2 of them he were unhappy with. So he'll take that percentage. But this one, if they had had another script, he would have not shot this one. So I think it's a little bit of oh my goodness, technology is going to take over us. And there's not a lot of complexity to it, though I think highlighted by David McCallum getting a guest star. And then, as you guys talked about, the character beats with the reporter visiting and the Garibaldi explaining a little bit more of the background with him and the commander made for pretty interesting. So you guys have already talked a little bit, but like the whole idea of this technology taking over and deciding if you're worthy or not. Lou, any thoughts about that as we try to delve into this episode?
Yeah, it's a concept or a trope, I guess you could say, even at this point, of technology being used to determine how people live their lives or by what standards people should be judged upon in that. And I think, like, obviously in Star Trek Next Generation, they've explored this quite deeply with the Borg. So this has precursor elements to that here. It's a interesting idea that, and especially, like what we're seeing now with, again, you have to bring it to present day, and I'm not going to get into specifics, but certain groups of people want to control how other people live their lives by passing laws and whatnot. And this is that concept carried out to the nth degree, where it leads to the collapse or the demise of this civilization. It's something that's always worth addressing. And I like that this is the best way, I think, to get people to look at themselves and reconsider their positions on things. Because if you tell it in a story, because we're all wired for stories, so this type of vehicle is a great way to get somebody to examine their current beliefs and reevaluate them. Whereas if you try to argue with somebody, you're not going to get anywhere, because right away from the get-go, as we've seen, facts don't mean anything to people, because once you're emotionally engaged in something, the facts don't mean anything. So if you're talking to somebody and you have an opposing view about something, your blood's going to start to boil immediately, because they're attacking your core beliefs. So I like this. This is the allure of these types of shows for me. Like, they're Trojan horses for these types of things. So I love the ideas that are in this episode. I just found that the execution was pretty lacking, and should have been a tighter clarity focus on that whole concept of why this race was wiped out, because we didn't really get that till the last quarter of the episode. So it's an interesting concept. It just wasn't executed very well this time.
Yeah. Karen?
Yeah, it's also, a pretty standard allegory for Hitler and all that, ethnic cleansing, as well as, the fact that we can apply it to now.
Yeah.
And that really makes for a good concept. It really does, because it takes that element of, if you don't remember history, you're doomed to repeat it kind of thing, and puts it in people's faces. And I really would hope that this is the kind of thing that people watch and get a different idea of things. And so that does make me hopeful. That's a really great point, Lou. When I was watching it, my thing was, I kind of knew where it was coming down Main Street.
Yeah.
It hits you in the head the minute stuff starts happening, and you're like, oh, all right, the technology is either going to take over, or the technology is the Icarians, and that's why. So there's two ways it could go, that it is the Icarians and it takes over stuff to make new weapons, or something that they created and it took them over. So that's where it got me. It was like great concept, some great story beats, great character growth, but just not executed really well.
Yeah, J. Michael Straczynski says that he was this is the first episode he wrote after the pilot. And so he was trying to get his feelings kind of together. I also think that it is always better when it's in a little more light touch of what we're trying to do. The idea that not only the people who create this, but the idea you could come up with, no one is pure, right? No one is exactly worse. And then I do like at the end, it's not surprising that Earth government confiscates this, right? Like, instead of I'm thinking about the movie Alien, right? Where the corporation, this is a weapon we can use, instead of, oh my God, this is dangerous and we should put this away. No. Let's try to figure out how to tame this and use it against us and to make money.
Yeah. And the fact that, what's his name? The scientist guy, that he was just blasé about it.
Yeah.
It was a matter of fact for him.
Yeah.
He didn't care that it was wrong, or I can make money off of it, so I got to do it that way.
Yeah. And
one of the things that got me was that he says right up front that he can't make any money as a scientist anymore, that's a job that just doesn't pay. And so he had to go a different way. And it really, it makes you think, there's a lot of people now that they don't have any choice. They have to go for a job that makes more money. Made me a little sad.
Well, yeah, and the idea that the character is justifying this, that by doing this, I can fund true scientific expeditions and true fact finding. The military, in modern terms, will pay for a lot of money for something that can be used by them versus maybe not funding something that doesn't have military or doesn't have practical capabilities. So yeah, I thought that was really interesting. I'm like you. I the moment when I saw this the first time, when I saw David McCullen, I went, oh gosh, the man from U.N.C.L.E. Oh, great. I thought he was good in this. I thought that he was played very gray, not this evil scientist, just the matter of fact of, I'm being very practical. This is what I have to do to make the money. And then once he talks about that to Franklin, think about all the money we can do and the good we can do if we have this money, this cash.
Right.
Yeah. So do you think Franklin was tempted at all? Or was he just being sarcastic at the end? He goes, yeah, that's a good thought, but it's too late. Then they come to arrest him. Either one.
I think that's exactly right. I think at the very least, he was a realist about all of this.
Yeah.
That, hey, things are going to happen. And, if they're going to happen anyway, I might as well profit from this. It's a pretty real way to look at things. And not just I'll profit from them, but I might do some good later on down the line. Yeah. It's just sad. That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think that the doctor ever entertained the thought of what is it? Harris was his Franklin. Sorry. Franklin and Hendricks. Yeah.
Hendricks,
I don't think Franklin ever entertained any thought of keeping the technology and selling it and whatnot. So yeah, the Earth thing was coming to take it away. I hoped that the doctor had lost all the other facts, but I guess he didn't have time to do that. But and then his ruminating on what had happened and saying that are we ever going to learn from our mistakes and so forth is a pretty common thing as well. So and then Susanna was there to offer her pretty sage Russian advice as well. So
yeah.
She says, I'm going to go have a drink with the other aliens. So I thought that was pretty funny. But I don't know. I got Indiana Jones vibes when those government guys showed up there and said, I was thinking of the ark going into the warehouse kind of thing.
Right.
We would be lucky if they're going to do that, because in this case, it's more like you said, alien, where the corporation wants to take the technology, dangerous technology, and see if they can let the genie out of the bottle again. So
Earth Force Defense.
Yes. Yeah. So we learn in the course of the episode that this is the second anniversary of B5 going online. They're sending someone to record. We get the reporter that Sinclair doesn't want to visit with. We'll talk a little bit about that. But I thought it was interesting. 75% of the Interstat Network news said Babylon 5 wouldn't last 5 minutes, and Lloyd's of London put it 500-1 against lasting 1 year. Yes. So it is interesting because you wonder if the public was so against doing this again, why are they? And is it because the other worlds helped fund it? I know that not in canon, but in references that JMS talks about that this was done very cheap, that this was the least well-constructed station of the 5 stations. So let's talk a little bit about, we get a lot of insight in Garibaldi and Sinclair's friendship and their relationship. At one time, he calls him Jeff and he calls him Michael. They dropped the last names and ranks, and Sinclair not wanting to be interviewed. So I think that was the more interesting part of the story. So any thoughts, Lou?
Yeah, I hope they clarify a bit more about their history, because Garibaldi says he wasn't on the front line. So what exactly was he doing?
Yeah.
Curious about that. But the whole speech, or there are enough of friends where he feels like he can call Sinclair on his shit, basically, and say, like, why are you constantly throwing yourself into the line of fire? And the whole concept of PTSD for modern day warriors, soldiers comes into play here. So that's all interesting. And Sinclair's honest enough to say that he doesn't have an answer to that, why he's doing what he's doing. So I'm sure that that's going to be fleshed out in future episodes. But yeah, I like the fact that they're friends enough that Garibaldi feels comfortable enough and feels motivated enough to want to say that to him. So I'm really curious what the background of their friendship is. Like, did Sinclair save him or whatever? Or like, why would Sinclair seemingly go out of his way to help this guy out if he feels like such a lost cause. So, and I don't think Garibaldi's one to make friendships easily either. So obviously they recognize something between the two of them that's special. So that's a good seed planting scene again. And I'm looking forward to them expanding on that further.
Yeah. Karen?
Yeah, I really, we've been waiting for Garibaldi to make a fist and to talk to Sinclair about why he does all this. And it is a good beat that Sinclair finally says, in no uncertain terms, it's a compulsion for him. He just feels like he has to. And so that gave me a lot more feeling for his character. As you know, we've talked about the fact that the actor who plays him is a little stiff.
Yes.
This one, he seemed more relaxed playing the character, which is a good thing. And there was also that you could see that there was a tie between, which again is great acting between the two actors. I did like the line, and it's when he's talking to Garibaldi about, was it Garibaldi about being in, where he says the last time, it might have been his second in command.
Yeah, it might have been.
The last time I gave an interview, they told me just to relax and say what I really felt. 10 minutes after the broadcast, I got transferred to an outpost so far off the star maps, you couldn't find it with a hunting dog and a Ouija board.
Great line.
And that made me giggle a little bit.
Yeah, that was with Garibaldi. Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't sure who he was talking
Which
to.
he would probably already know about. So it's kind of like, this is a speaking to the audience kind of line, right? Because Garibaldi would know all this already. So
right. And then Garibaldi is, relaying that they had a good relationship to this reporter, but we didn't get the story. In that case, they didn't telegraph anything.
Right.
It's just we got like the last couple lines of that story about them getting out of the desert together. So that was frustrating to me. I wanted more of that, but we did get a lot more of them, how they bonded and why Garibaldi was there, and that was packed. I mean, we got a lot of information about the two of them in this episode. I just wanted a little bit more.
Sure. And I remember as a kid reading David Gerard's Worlds of Star Trek.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
He had talked about that in Real World, that the captain is a very vital part, and that I don't remember exactly, but like the second time that Kirk would have gone on the planet and led an expedition, he would have gotten a stern talking to. The next time he would have gotten pulled his command, right? But the reality is they're TV stars, and so you use your stars. I think this was a very clever way to cover that this is, he's our lead, and so therefore he wants to be involved, but we're not going to hand wave that. We're going to say, because he's talked about that, the commander's a hands-on kind of guy. He'll grab any chance he can to take out a ship. He's like that. So this has been reoccurring statement, because we've brought it up before in our discussions, and I think it's really good that Michael goes to and says, hey, looking for something worth dying for, because it's easier than finding something worth living for. And Sinclair doesn't immediately, no. He said, oh, well, maybe. We will find out more about the line as we go forward, but it is a massive turning point in the Minbari Earth War, and he was involved in that, this kind of their version of a last stand, almost a Dunkirk thing. So I thought that was really well done, and I think this is a throwaway episode till you get to the ending. And then and this is one of the reasons why I love the series, is here is an episode that is totally forgettable. Okay, we got a little background, but when the reporter says, why do we keep going into space, he gives an answer that is, I think, amazing. Thoughts? Yeah,
it was. I guess the only quibble I have with it just seemed to peter out or was cut off abruptly.
Yeah.
There was like no reaction from the reporter. That seemed like a missed opportunity to me. And some of the names that he picked up were like, I mean, they're famous people, but they're not like top tier famous people. So I was wondering, what was his selection criteria for the names that he was coming up with? So it was a great idea again, but again, for me, the execution wasn't there. Well, and I think my point was, anytime they mention Buddy Holly, I'm going to be happy because I love Buddy Holly. But the idea, I think he was talking about not just great
political leaders, but great culture changers.
Mhm.
Like I did not recognize all the names, but the ones I did, I thought it was kind of nice. And the idea, right, that all of this is for nothing unless we go to the stars. The other thing I love is the ask 10 different scientists about the environmental population control genetics. You'll get 10 different answers, and which is so prevalent today.
Mhm.
Just recently, I ended up watching Look Up, Don't Look Up,
Right.
the
Okay,
original
that was
series.
funny.
Very funny, at some time depressing
Yep.
in a lot of ways. The idea that how will we do this? So I really liked that very positive looking, this is why we do this. This is why we try to, Karen?
Yeah, I'm in the same mind of you, both actually.
Yeah.
I would have liked to hear more reactions
Yeah.
to that. Like, I hope that we get an episode that focuses a bit on that. I'm not sure that we will, but
Yeah.
it would be nice to hear why they're doing these Babylon stations.
Yeah.
But the fact that there are some people that are like, why do we need to go?
Yeah.
Why do we need a NASA? You know, why do we need that? That actually happens. There are people that don't get why we try to explore things, why we spend so much money exploring things. And the reason is we have to. I mean, there's other things out there. We should know about them. And knowing about things in outer space could also lead to us knowing more about ourselves or our makeup, our environment, all those things. So not only are we going to learn about other things, but we're going to learn more about ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think that's it's something that needs to be said, that we do need to explore things. We do need to reach out for things that seem out of reach. And also, you know, they're doing that. Everybody's here on the station, all these different cultures and everything. And we might just learn something from that too.
Yeah. It made me think of there's a scene in West Wing where Sam Seaburn is having a discussion with Mallory O'Brien, who is Leo's daughter. And he says, there are a lot of hungry people in the world, Mal, and none of them are hungry because we went to the moon. None of them are cold, or certainly none of them are dumber because we went to the moon. And Mallory says, and we went to the moon. Do we really have to go to Mars? And Sam says, yes. Mallory, why? And Sam, because it's next. Because we came out of the cave, we looked over the hill, and we saw fire. And we crossed the ocean, and we pioneered the West, and we took to the sky. The history of man is hung on a timeline of exploration, and this is what's next. And so that made me think of that kind of speech and that thought. And I like the idea that even in a throwaway episode, you find a little bit of something as they're building this. And so that's really good. Anything else we need to talk about? Like I said, very simple, straightforward episode. Anything else I missed that we need to visit about?
I'm just curious, is this a modus operandi for the show, that we're either one episode we have like the other main cast members? Because every episode I'm seeing like Bill Mummy, blah, blah, blah. And I said, we're like 5 episodes in. I haven't seen any of these characters yet. Like, I'm getting a little impatient. And so when let's just focus on the core crew of Babylon 5 and we don't get Lando and Jakar, I feel bummed out. I'd like to see that these characters involved in these non-race specific storylines. Like, this is a more of a big picture idea, and I'd like to see their reaction to this scenario as well. So I'm just curious, is this how the show is going to be going forward, or are we going to see more of the cast together all the time on a regular basis?
I believe, and of course I'm trying to remember as we talk about this, but I feel like as the show adapts, there is more interaction between the characters, and he learns how to play with his toys better to get them all involved. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Because it's a little off-putting, right?
Yes, it is. It is. Especially if Londo and Jakar are 2 of your favorite characters, which I would certainly argue they are with me, that you want more of them. And we got a really nice Susan episode last time, but now then we didn't get anything of her this time. And so, yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah,
well, I mean, except for Garibaldi and Sinclair.
Right. But we haven't seen the Membari for 2 episodes now.
Yeah, we haven't gotten much of her at all.
And I got to harp on it. I'm still would like to know where the space station is located exactly. Like, it sounds like the one jump gate. I think they mentioned Proxima Centauri 3 or something like that. So, okay, that's where the jump gate is, but it still doesn't tell me and why they picked this location for the space station. I still don't know why. So that, like, these are questions that I hope are going to be answered, because right now they're just like those, like the jump gate thing. So it just bugs me a little bit that they don't nail down the setting. Like the setting, they've nailed down the space station, but they haven't nailed down the nearby setting
stuff.
Exactly.
So that's frustrating. And I'm getting the vibe from the show, or the feeling that it has a lot of great ideas, but whether because it was of time constraints or budgets, their execution is not always the best. And this episode is a perfect example of that, because like we talked about all these great ideas, but all the action scenes in this episode were terrible, to be kind.
Yeah. So, and I think back on when I had not watched Supernatural, and when friend of our mutual friend on the guy, I was talking to the people on tuning into Sci-Fi TV, right?
Yep.
And they said specifically, "Oh, Jesse, here, watch these 5 episodes of the first season of Supernatural. That'll get you everything you need to know, and then go straight to season 2." Right?
Right.
There are things available that will tell you which of season 1 you should watch. And then season 2 is when everything starts to click.
Right.
I tend to be a completist and like, no, let's build through this journey.
Yeah.
But I do think that is a fair criticism. And in fact, I went on a website, I was curious, I said, rank the worst episodes of Babylon 5, and Infection was 9 out of 10.
Oh,
so this is in the top 10 worst episodes of the.
So now we've got that out of the way.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
9 more to go.
This is Jeremiah Crichton.
Jeremiah Crichton, yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, no, I actually like that episode more than you guys.
Yeah, not everybody agrees with us on that.
No. Yeah. I liked it too. And in fact, I always love that my good friend Tom said that was the episode that first sold him, that he really
Seriously?
loved it. Yes, because there's always a sacred text. He just loves that line.
Oh,
Bring me
okay.
the sacred text.
Yeah.
There's always a sacred text. So,
Yeah.
yes. All right. How about you, Karen? Any final thoughts before we move to rankings and we have feedback?
No, I think I said all my stuff.
Okay.
I do have one more thing, but we can do it after the feedback.
Okay, good. All right. So let's do ratings. Lou, how about you?
I'm going to give this a 6 out of 10 Beatles, I guess.
Okay, Karen.
Beatles. Okay. I'm going to give it the same grade as last week, 7.5 Ouija board.
Nice.
And the only reason it's that high, of course, is the character expansions on Sinclair and Garibaldi.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to split the difference. I'm going to say 7 out of 10 recognizable guest stars, or a little bit of love for Ducky. Yes. Yeah. All right. Holly Mack sent us an email. She said, "Hey, all, Garibaldi sure has a way with reporters, doesn't he? Oh, Vance, played by the great Robert McKellen. Nice to see him show up as a guest star. Of course, Nelson would be working with Vance." Sigh. Organic technology, interesting, but why am I getting big red flags on this? Lovely Nelson is looking rough around the edges after he got zapped by the alien tech. Garibaldi asking what the worst that could happen with the interview. If he only knew what was going on in the med bay. But I think they'll find out soon enough. Okay, this alien organic tech is pretty terrifying, almost like the Borg. Poor Dr. Franklin getting the wool pulled over his eyes by his mentor. The standoff between Sinclair and the Icarian that took over Nelson, wowza. Good on Steven for turning in Vance. That had to be tough. It was the right thing to do. This was a great episode. Looking forward to more. I'll wrap it up here. Holly from Wisconsin. Thank you, Holly. I appreciate it so much. It is really nice to hear this. And if you want to give us feedback, our email, jklb5podcast@gmail.com. Let's see. You said there was one other thing you wanted to share, Lou?
Yes. I don't know if either of you are aware of this, but one of the reasons that we decided to do this podcast was the news of a Babylon 5 reboot. And unfortunately, there's been some concerning news in that it's been bumped from this. It was supposed to come out in 2022 or filmed in 2022. But unfortunately, due to CW being up for sale, they've put a freeze on projects. So it's not going to come out this year. And it It's now being redeveloped for their 2023 slate. But until something goes in front of the cameras, you're never really sure if it's going to get done. Yeah. So this is a little bit concerning.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's just a minor delay. Straczynski seems fairly upbeat about it. He said that this happened before with Warner Brothers and that. So he's still hopeful, still working on the pilot for filming for next year. So we'll keep our fingers crossed. On the plus side, it gives us an extra year to get more of these episode reviews done. So from a selfish point of view, it's not too bad, but I'm sure fans are probably upset about that.
Yeah. And I know that people tend to go immediately to the negative and, oh no, Fox is canceling Firefly. They're doing everything that we bring back bad memories. But he seems to be very realistic in the past about what things are. And I agree with you based on his tweets and what he said. It sounds like he's still confident that there is a good chance they will get their turn in 2023. Mm-hmm. And he's using it as an excuse to fine-tune pilot and go from there.
Yeah. He's been around a long time. He knows the game. So he's maneuvering properly. Yeah. He's not throwing a temper tantrum or a hissy fit and possibly jeopardizing the project. So he's playing nice and being positive. So yeah, we'll keep our fingers crossed.
Good.
And this does happen all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't a one-off.
No.
So many projects get put off a year, 2 years, 3 years, and they become huge successes. So I can't imagine that it's horrible news. I don't think it's great news, but I think it should be okay.
Yeah. I am excited about the, as we're talking, all the news we're getting about the Quantum Leap reboot.
Right.
And the sequel. Obviously, I'm sad that at this point, they're not officially saying Scott Bakula is part of it. And he's like, I'm not part of it. But I'm hoping they're playing their cards in the chest to kind of surprise us.
Mm-hmm. I thought he was, but maybe I just wanted to believe he is.
I know that it sounds like this will be a sequel.
Mm-hmm.
And so they are not going to ignore the earlier season, and so we'll see. I love the original series, and so I'm optimistic that they can do some good things. And then, as we talked about, I would love to have Samuel Beckett come home and give me a better ending than what I got on the original Quantum Five. That's still one of my sadder endings.
Yeah, for sure.
Agreed.
I'm a big fan of that series too. I put his two-parter where he jumped back home into himself as like that's up top 10 TV moments for me.
Oh, absolutely.
Like when he's singing Imagine to his sister on the porch there, that's like wow.
Oh man.
Yeah, powerful stuff. And then of course it leads into the great stuff for what's the other guy's name?
Al.
Al. Yeah, his backstory in Vietnam. Yeah,
great stuff.
That was the high point of the series for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. There we go.
So, Lou, if someone wants to reach you, how can they?
You can find me on Twitter at Lou, L-O-U-W Sytsma, S-Y-T-S-M-A, or at the Stephen King Podcast on YouTube. You can find me at Lou's Reviews, where I'll be posting a YouTube version of this podcast to accompany or complement Jesse's audio version. So, yeah, look for me there.
All right, Karen.
At Alveria, A-L-V-E-R-I-A. I'm sorry, I'm not quite here all the way. I'm at Alveria almost everywhere. Find me there. And if you find me there, there'll be links to other stuff.
Very nice. And I am at Jesse Jackson DFW. From there, you can find out what I'm doing and who I'm talking to for my other couple podcasts. Charles and I still are talking Doctor Who every other week, and I'm talking to a lot of fun people for Set Listing Bruce. And so look for those on my feed. Karen, Lou, thank you so much for brightening our morning after daylight savings time that we all,
going back to bed.
Going back to bed. Yes, indeed. Or as Chris says now, then he will hate that the sun is still out when he's trying to go to bed sometimes.
Yeah.
But it will do that. We will talk in 2 weeks. We have our next episode is The Parliament of Dreams. And I think I will just say this one has some nice things. I like this one. I'm looking forward to watching it again and hearing y'all's thoughts about it.
Cool.
All right. Thank you, listeners. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Lou. And we will talk to you soon. Goodbye.
Thank you, Jesse. Bye, listeners. Bye. And scene.